I'm trying. Can't you overstand?
And I named a really fine person in Harriet Myers to be considered by the United States Senate. I was looking for somebody who knew the law, somebody who'd been a good practicing attorney. She was a pioneer woman and a trailblazer.
Oh, that takes me back. That's 2005, October. That was a wild time, was it not? You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. We continue with Matt Latimer, who is persona non grata in some Republican circles, because he wrote this book about the Bush White House, and a lot of really positive things about President Bush. In this book is about his odyssey in the conservative movement as a young conservative coming to Washington. And Bill McGurn's piece, I guess he was your boss, he was the man who hired you, and it was titled When Speechwriters Kiss and Tell. This is a vicious piece he wrote against you. Matt neglects to mention that personnel took away his West Wing cubby when they needed space for someone more important, or that he spent the first few weeks knocking on every door in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building looking for a room sufficiently grand to display his large and ever-expanding collection of framed testimonials to himself. He basically says you were failing. That's why he brought you on Air Force One. I put him there because he was failing, brought him in the Oval Office. An attempt on my part to get the president to warm up to him. But he basically says distasteful. This whole effort was distasteful, and you were a climber and you didn't succeed.
Yeah, well, I like Bill a lot. I worked with him. He left the White House before I actually was promoted, and the president actually called me and asked me to stay longer in October of 2008 when I was planning to leave. But apologies ago, the Wall Street Journal is going to let me respond to those criticisms that weren't true. But that's what they're doing. They're going around telling all these producers, all these different shows, all these things that aren't true. And I've offered to debate them on any show that they want, anytime they want. We can do it on your show. You could be the moderator if you'd like.
Well, I think we tried to get a few folks to come on, and I'm happy to have. Me
too.
I understand. They're protective over their former boss,
sure,
and sure. I understand that. For me, a consumer of news and information, I like having more, not less. Exactly. I like knowing more about what's happening in these halls of power. And as a conservative who was very critical in the last few years of the Bush administration, 3 or 4 years of him, right after the second term election, I'm fascinated by this, because this can't happen again to the Republican Party. This party can't go down this road of big spending, these big grandiose ideas of transforming the world, and all. That's not conservatism. That's interesting, but it's not conservatism.
Well, Laura, you were the first person to go out and talk about Harriet Myers, and from then on out, there's a lot of things that are disappointments for conservatives, and I think that conservatives need to see what happened, as you're saying, so that we know we don't do this again.
Now, what about President Bush did you really love and respect? What about the man really drew you to him?
Well, I'll tell you, I talk in my book about a lot of people in Washington, particularly senators who go to Washington and they think that, they're 17th century aristocrats who should be catered to. And I talk about one U.S. senator who had somebody carry her purse around Capitol Hill. The best thing about President Bush was he never let Washington get to him. He was exactly the same person when he came to town as he was when he left. He was exactly that person, and I tried to capture him as he was, funny, plain-spoken, blunt, maybe incautiously blunt sometimes, but that's who he was, and he never let Washington get to him, and that's the best thing I could say about anybody, basically, in this town.
Let's go to, we just lost, there's a guy who was, one person who just called, we just lost the line for some reason, asked you to specifically respond to the McGurn editorial, but you're going to do so
in the Journal. Yeah,
you're going to do so in the Journal. Yeah. But just his general criticism of you, though, as somebody who is inflating his own position at the White House to sell books and to make money. How do you respond to that?
Well, if people would read my book, they would see, I constantly downplay my role in Washington. In fact, I remember talking at one point, I was one of the speechwriters at the Judson Welver Society. Bill Safire it's all these former presidential speechwriters. Of course, Bill Safire, unfortunately, just passed away. And I remember thinking I was with these Kennedy writers and these Reagan speechwriters. President Bush wasn't known for his great speaking style, and I sort of compared myself to the R.C. Cole of speechwriters.
Well, but you say really nice things about Rumsfeld, but you are writing Rumsfeld's or helping him write his memoir. So McGurn said, look, pretty nice to Rumsfeld, but, getting paid by Rumsfeld.
Well, I'm nice to Cheney, too, and other conservatives who actually stuck to their principles.
So it's not nothing to do with the fact that you're working on the memoir, the book?
No, he's never even read my book.
When is that coming out?
His book, I think it's going to come out next year, but it's going to be up to him. He's writing the memoir, not me. In the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, Matt Latimer is fascinating stuff. And look, I think it's always positive. The more information that comes out after the meltdown of the Republican Party that we've seen, and this was a meltdown. And President Bush was right when he said, I've transformed the Republican Party. Right. He did. He transformed it. He helped transform it into a minority power in Washington, D.C. Right. That's for sure. So Matt Latimer's book, Speechless, Tales of a White House Survivor, be your own judge. Pick it up and check it out. Don't believe necessarily everything you're hearing, and I'll look forward to your piece in the Journal.
Right. Thank you.
All right, Matt Latimer on the Laura Ingraham Show. Don't go away.
Sometimes you misunderestimated me.
And bad mistakes, I've made a few.
The Laura Ingraham Show.